Welcome to the video for lesson 2.3, the remainder and factor theorems, and finding zeros of polynomial functions. In this lesson, you'll be able to use long division to divide polynomials, understand and apply the remainder theorem and factor theorem, write polynomials as products of linear and irreducible quadratic factors, write polynomials as products of all linear factors, including complex. Identify all zeros of polynomial functions. First, we'll start with what's called the division algorithm. So let p of x and d of x be two polynomials. Then there must exist a unique polynomial q of x called the quotient and r of x called the remainder, such that p of x will equal q of x times d of x plus r of x, where r of x could be 0 or have a degree less than the degree of d of x. Couple examples that you see on the screen. Example 1, where we can see long division that would be used to help completely factor a polynomial. And in that example, through the division algorithm, we see the remainder is 0. So because the remainder is 0, which we can see right there, we know our original p of x, our original polynomial, can be written as a product of our two factors, where we can see the quotient right there as 3x squared plus 16x minus 12. And that actually can be factored even more so with the AC method, which you can see down below. The second example, just again practicing the division algorithm, long division algorithm, we can see this time our quotient up top, but this time our remainder is 10. So our original polynomial can be written as a product of the quotient and what we would call the divisor, or our, what we're dividing by, and then we can see our remainder of 10. So a slightly different way to write, where we can see that quotient function, but instead adding the remainder still over our divisor. So just two slightly different ways to write it. The first one in purple does match that division algorithm. Synthetic division is a simplified version of long division that can be used. It's a different algorithm, but is directly connected. And I shouldn't say it's a different algorithm, but it is, again, like you are reading a simplified version of it. So you can see that here in purple is how we would set up the problem. We have our dividend and then what we're dividing by. We bring the first number down, and then any number that shows up in this bottom row we multiply with our value out front, which is the 0 of our factor there, or our divisor. If we take x plus 4 and set it equal to 0, we would get this value out here. And then going down, so we place our new numbers in the next available spot, and then going down the column, we add our numbers together and start the process over again. This one has a remainder of 0, so we can see our quotient function there. So next, the remainder and the factor theorems. The remainder theorem says that if a polynomial function f of x is divided by some x minus s, then the remainder is r equal to f of s. And the factor theorem states that a polynomial p of x has a factor of x minus s if and only if p of s is 0. This means that s is a 0 of a polynomial p of x if and only if p of x is divisible by x minus s. And if x minus s divides p of x, then we know our remainder must be 0, which is really this piece right here. So one example to show that, we're using the factor theorem to simply determine if the given binomial is a factor of f of x. So I chose to use synthetic division, or what we could also say is synthetic substitution, because if, if x minus 5 is a factor, then the 0 associated with that linear factor would be 5. And so we could call this synthetic substitution. So doing the synthetic algorithm, we see that we get a remainder of 0. So that means x minus 5 must be a factor. And so then the quotient, right down here, x squared minus 13x minus 5, would be the missing unique polynomial that we could multiply by our divisor. So again, our quotient and our divisor to get back to our original function. If we test, and there's a mistake in that written work, if we test the other factor x plus 5, its 0 would be negative 5. And if we go through the synthetic substitution again, we see that our remainder is not 0, and so this cannot be a factor. So next, for the rational zero theorem, recall that a polynomial function of degree n can have at most n real zeros. That is the fundamental theorem of algebra. Real zeros can be rational or irrational. Rational zeros are those that can be written in the form of a fraction, some p over q. So the rational zero theorem can be used to determine all possible rational zeros of a polynomial function. Not all possible zeros, but all fractional zeros. And so what is the rational zero theorem? If some polynomial of our form, a sub n, x sub n, x to the n, plus a sub n minus 1 times x to the n minus 1, and so on. If it has integer coefficients, then every rational zero of the function has the following form. Some p over q, where p denotes the factors of the constant term a sub 0, and q, the denominator, is the factors of the lead coefficient a sub n. So if we're asked to ever find all rational zeros, we want to first list all possible zeros using the rational zero theorem, then use synthetic substitution or long division to test those zeros. And if we get a remainder of 0, we know that according to the factor theorem and the remainder theorem, it must be a factor. And when we find zeros, we can continue to use them to completely factor, whether that's continuing to use synthetic or long division, or some of our other factoring algorithms like the AC method, difference of perfect squares, and so on. So this first example, or only example rather, list all possible rational zeros of the function, then determine which, if any, are zeros. So we first list the possible, so we're looking at all of the factors of our constant term, which is 4. So 4, 2, and 1. And then we're going to take those numbers and divide by all the factors of our lead coefficient term there of 1. So since the only factors of 1 are 1, this is a nice one. 4 divided by 1 would be either a plus or minus 4. Another factor of our constant term down there, 2. 2 divided by 1 would be our plus or minus 2. And then another and last factor of 4 would be 1, so divide by 1 plus or minus 1. So then we can go ahead and use synthetic substitution to test all of them. I chose to test positive 1 first. I got a remainder of 0. So I know that 1 must be a 0 of our function, and therefore x minus 1 must be the linear factor. The depressed polynomial, or our quotient that we get from that division, x squared minus 2x minus 4, we can then use that depressed polynomial, which is what we'll call it, to test some of the others, which you can see I tested negative 1, it didn't work, 2 did not work, 4, no, negative 2, no, and negative 4, no. So the only real rational zeros here of this function would be 1. If we're going to talk about finding zeros, we better talk about being able to find complex zeros. So recalling the fundamental theorem of algebra, the polynomial of degree n, where n is greater than or equal to 1, has at least one zero in the complex number system. Any real number is also a complex number, something to note. So linear factorization is really going to be the idea of being able to factor any polynomial down into factors where the greatest or highest degree of the factor is a 1. So in the form of some x minus c. So if c is a complex zero, then x minus c must be a linear factor of that polynomial. According to the conjugate root theorem, when a polynomial equation in one variable with real coefficients has a root of the form a plus bi, where b is not 0, then its complex conjugate a minus bi must also be a root. This is helpful when given complex zeros. We can assume and therefore know, because of the conjugate root theorem, that its conjugate is also a 0. So we can see that in this example. We know this polynomial has negative 1, 2, and 2 minus I as zeros, And so we know then 2 plus I, its conjugate, must also be a 0. We can use the zeros to write its factored form. And then we can, with a little bit of algebra, expand it out to find our function. So now a function has complex zeros when its factored form contains a quadratic factor, which is irreducible over the reals. A quadratic expression is irreducible over the reals when its real coefficients, when it has a real coefficient but no real zeros associated with it. So our final example, we get to kind of put all of this together. We want to be able to write this k of x as a product of linear and irreducible quadratic factors. Then go a little bit further, write it as a product of all linear factors, and then finally list all the zeros of k of x, whether they are real or complex. So we'll use the rational zero theorem to list out all the possible zeros and then begin testing them. We can be, this can be a cumbersome process because there's a lot of numbers to test. So don't be afraid to take out your technology, use your TI-84 to graph your function and make some estimates on which one of these possible zeros might be a good one to start checking. And that's exactly what I did. That's how I knew to start with 4. I graphed this on my calculator and went, oh, it looks like it's crossing at 4. Let's test it. And it worked. So then our quotient, our remainder, I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that word there, but our quotient is the one that I continued testing. And again, same thing. It looked like on my graph it crossed the x-axis at -3 and -2. So I tested those in that order. And again, you notice the numbers I'm testing or numbers I'm using across the top there, the ones I'm highlighting in red, are really the depressed polynomial as I keep dividing. Okay, so through that division process, we can write it as a product of linear factors and a non-reducible quadratic, x squared plus 1. And so then in part B, we can take that irreducible quadratic and factor it in the complex number system. So that required doing a little rewriting. So it was in the form of a difference of 2 perfect squares using I. And so then x plus I and x minus I. And so now we have all linear factors, including those complex on the end. So then all zeros of k of x would be 4, -3, -2, -I, and I.